The wind roared across the empty mountain road as Ethan Cole pushed his old truck through the storm. Snow drifted across the windshield like waves of white fire, and the world outside looked more like another planet than a normal winter night. Ethan had seen many storms in his life, but this one felt different. The cold cut through the windows, and the darkness felt heavy, like something alive was hiding inside. Ethan kept both hands tight on the steering wheel. He was returning from a supply run and was only a few miles from home, but the storm had grown so wild that every minute felt longer than the last. The truck shook with each push of the wind. The headlights barely reached the edge of the road, and everything beyond it was a wall of frozen white. Even with the heater on full blast, Ethan could see his breath inside the cabin. He leaned forward, trying to see anything that was not snow or darkness. The radio had died 10 minutes earlier, and his phone showed no signal at all. It was only him, the storm, and the endless mountains. Ethan had lived in these lands for years, so he trusted his instincts, but something inside him kept whispering that tonight was not normal, not natural. Almost like the storm wanted him to turn back. Then he saw it, a faint shape in the snow. Small, barely moving. At first he thought it was an animal, maybe a mountain fox struggling to cross the road. But as he drew closer, his stomach tightened. The shape was too still, too round, too strange. He slowed the truck and squinted through the windshield. Another shape lay beside it. Two figures lying in the storm, without coats, without boots, without anything that made sense. Ethan felt a chill rise inside him that had nothing to do with the cold dot. He stopped the truck, and the wind slammed against the doors. For a moment he hesitated. Every survival rule shouted that stepping outside in a blizzard was dangerous. But leaving whatever or whoever was out there to freeze felt worse. Ethan grabbed his heavy jacket, opened the door, and the storm swallowed him whole. Snow hit his face like needles. He pushed forward step by step until he reached the two small bodies. When he knelt beside them, his breath caught in his chest. They were children, but not human children. Their skin held a faint blue glow like moonlight trapped under ice. Their hair was white and soft like snow dust. Their clothing was thin, almost like silver fabric grown from light. Their eyes were closed, and their faces were pale with cold. They looked fragile and lost, like they had fallen from the sky and landed in a world that had no idea they existed. Ethan reached out and touched the arm of the nearest child. The skin was cold, but not dead cold. A pulse moved beneath it, slow but steady. The child was alive. The second child let out a tiny breath, a weak shiver that sounded like fear and hope at the same time. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He did not know who they were or where they came from, but he knew one thing. He could not leave them here. He lifted the first child into his arms. The small body felt light, almost weightless, like holding a shadow. The glow brightened for a moment, touched Ethan's chest, then faded again. He carried the child to the truck, placed them on the passenger seat, then ran back for the second child. When both were inside, he slammed the door shut and blasted the heater. The storm outside screamed against the windows. The children lay still, wrapped in Ethan's blankets. Their breathing was shallow and slow. One child opened their eyes just a little. The eyes were silver bright and full of fear. The child tried to speak, but only a soft sound came out. A sound Ethan had never heard from any human. Ethan stared at them, unsure what to do next. The storm, the silence, the abandoned road all pressed around him like the world itself was holding its breath. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why were they alone in a deadly blizzard, and why did he feel like something was watching from the darkness outside? The hook tightened inside him. This was not an accident. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Asterisk inside the truck. The heater worked hard to fight the cold, but the blizzard outside still rattled the windows like a wild animal trying to get in. Ethan sat in the driver's seat, watching the two alien children breathe in slow, weak patterns. Their skin glowed softly, and their silver eyes opened for only a second at a time. Every time they blinked, it felt like they were slipping further away from life. Ethan reached out carefully to touch the younger one's forehead. The alien child flinched but did not pull away. Their skin felt cold and smooth, almost like polished stone warmed by a fading fire. He lifted the child gently and pulled the blanket higher, hoping it would trap more heat. The other child watched, his movements with tired eyes full of confusion and fear. He spoke softly. "Hey, it is all right. You are safe. I will not hurt you." The children did not understand his words, but something in his voice made them relax just a little. The older child pressed a small glowing hand to the blanket, as if trying to hold it in place. Ethan saw the trembling under that tiny gesture and his chest tightened. He turned on every heater setting he could find and reached into his emergency kit. He poured warm water into a metal cup and set it near the heater vent. The soft steam rose in the air, filling the truck with a small breath of warmth. The younger child stirred and made a quiet sound that felt like a whisper mixed with a hum. The sound vibrated faintly through the air, almost calming. Ethan tried his phone again. No signal. He leaned back and looked at the storm beating against the glass. It was growing worse. The snow looked heavier, and the wind sounded like it was tearing through the world. He knew that leaving the truck now would be close to suicide. They had one choice: stay inside and hope the storm ended soon. The older child suddenly sat up straighter. Their eyes glowed brighter for a moment. They touched Ethan's arm and pointed at the door. Their voice cracked as they spoke one broken English word. Cold. Ethan nodded. "Yes, the storm will kill anyone out there. We stay here. We stay warm." The child looked at the younger one and held their hand tightly. A soft glow moved between their palms, like a tiny pulse of light traveling from one child to the other. Ethan watched in awe. The younger child's breathing grew a little stronger. The glow faded and both children slumped back, tired from whatever they had done. Ethan whispered, "You two are amazing, but you need to rest." He reached forward, adjusting the heater vents toward them. The older child blinked slowly. For a moment their gaze locked with Ethan's. It was a strange connection. They did not share language or history or even the same world. Yet in that one moment, Ethan understood their silent message. They were scared, they were hurt, and they had been running. Something about that thought made his skin crawl. He looked out the side window. The snow had become a white wall. It was thick, heavy, it swallowed everything. Even sound felt muffled, as if the storm was pressing its hand over the world. Ethan had driven in storms all his life, but never one that felt this alive. He wondered if the children had something to do with it. But they looked too weak to cause anything like this. The younger child coughed softly. Ethan opened his glove box and found a small thermal pack. He cracked it to activate the heat, then placed it gently on the child's chest under the blanket. The child's eyes opened halfway, and they reached to touch Ethan's hand. Their fingers were small, glowing and shaking. Ethan held onto them, just long enough to reassure them, then let go. "You are safe," he whispered again. "I promise." The truck creaked as wind slammed into it. Snow piled higher against the windows. Ethan realized they might be trapped here for the night. But he also realized something else. Those kids trusted him. They chose him. And that meant someone or something else had not been safe for them. A question rose inside him like a dark shadow. Who had they been running from, and were those people still searching in this storm right now? Ethan stared into the blizzard, feeling a sudden cold inside his chest that the heater could not touch. The storm was hiding something. He could feel it. And whatever it was getting closer. The rescue had only just begun. The storm outside had grown so fierce that the truck felt like it was floating in a sea of white. Ethan leaned forward in his seat, listening to the wind batter the windows. It sounded less like weather and more like something alive trying to find a way inside. The alien children slept under the blankets, breathing slowly, their faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan checked the heater again. Warm air still flowed, but the cold pressed around them in a way that felt unnatural. He tapped the dashboard to calm his nerves, but the screen flickered. The radio let out a burst of static, then went quiet again. His truck had seen many winters, but it had never behaved like this. He picked up his phone, hoping for a signal. Nothing. He tried it again, waiting for even one bar to appear. Still nothing. A sharp whisper of fear moved through him. Every device he had was failing at the same time. It felt like the storm was swallowing the air around them. Ethan placed the phone down and stared out the windshield. The blizzard was thick, but for a moment he thought he saw a shape in the snow. A dark blur, moving fast. He blinked, but it disappeared. His mind told him it was just drifting ice, but something inside him said it was not. The older child suddenly shifted under the blanket. Their eyes opened, halfway, glowing brighter than before. They sat up and looked toward the window with a tense expression. Their small hand tightened around the younger child, as if trying to shield them from something unseen. Ethan leaned closer. "What is it?" He kept his voice calm, even though he felt his heartbeat rising. The child shook their head, then pressed their fingers to the glass. A soft hum escaped their throat. The sound was strange but full of warning. They were sensing something. Something Ethan could not see. The truck lights flickered. The engine gave a low, choking sound. Ethan turned the key, gently trying not to panic. The engine returned to life, but its hum was weaker. Almost tired, Ethan whispered to himself, "Stay with me, old girl." "Not now." The children watched him with wide silver eyes. The younger one reached for his arm, trembling. Ethan held their hand softly. "It is all right. I am here. You are safe." But even as he said it, he felt unsure. The air had changed. It felt heavier, colder, sharper. Like pressure was building around the truck. Like something large and unseen was closing in. A deep vibration moved through the ground. Not thunder, not wind, something heavier. Something moving. The snow outside shifted as if pushed by a force passing beneath it. Ethan scanned the storm, trying to spot anything, but saw only shadows and swirling white. The older child whispered a soft, broken word. They did not pronounce it clearly, but Ethan heard it well enough. "Coming." Ethan froze. "Coming who?" He leaned closer. "What is coming?" The child pointed at the windshield again. Their finger shook. Ethan followed the line of their pointing, but saw only darkness. Then the headlights flickered again, and for one breath, he saw it clearly. A pair of lights far behind him. Too high to be a car stuck in the storm. Too steady to be a trick of the snow. They were moving in a slow, deliberate motion, following the road, approaching like hunters tracking a scent. Ethan felt cold crawl up his spine. Someone was out there, and they were heading straight for him. He grabbed the wheel, ready to start the truck, but hesitated. The engine was weak, and the road ahead was blind. Driving now might throw them off the edge of the mountain. Staying still might get them caught. The children sensed his fear. The older one wrapped arms around the younger one, who was now awake and breathing fast. Their glow brightened as if reacting to danger. Ethan whispered, "It is all right. I will protect you." But the truth pressed him from inside. He did not know what he was protecting them from. The lights behind him vanished into the storm, then reappeared closer. The vibration returned stronger. Someone was definitely coming. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. His instincts screamed at him. This was not a rescue team. This was not anyone friendly. Whoever was moving through the storm wanted those children badly. With the wind howling and the storm twisting around them, Ethan made a choice. If someone was hunting these kids, he would not let them be taken. He started the engine. The truck shook but obeyed. The older child looked at him with a spark of hope and fear mixed together. Ethan looked forward into the storm. He whispered a single promise. "I will not let them take you. Then he pushed the truck into gear as the unknown threat closed in. The truck rumbled weakly as Ethan kept the engine running. The wind outside roared like a giant creature sweeping across the mountain. Snow slammed against the windows in endless waves, but the children in the passenger seat were staring at something far beyond the storm. Their silver eyes were wide and glowing brighter than before. They were not looking at the cold. They were looking at something approaching through it. Ethan leaned closer. "What do you see?" His voice was low, steady, and patient, but inside he felt fear crawling slowly through his body. The older child raised a trembling hand toward the windshield. Their voice cracked as they spoke a faint word. "Hide," Ethan blinked. "Did you say hide?" The child nodded. Their eyes darted nervously from the window to the door, as if every shadow carried danger. The younger child crawled closer to Ethan, shaking from cold and fear. They pressed close to him as if his presence offered some kind of protection. Ethan wrapped the blanket around them again. "It is all right. You are safe with me." But he knew safety was not guaranteed. Not tonight. The vibration he had felt earlier returned. This time it was stronger, like something heavy was moving across the snow-covered road. The truck windows shook. Ethan reached for the headlight switch and flicked them off. Instantly the truck fell into darkness, lit only by the faint glow of the alien children. He whispered, "Stay quiet." For a moment the blizzard looked normal again. Then through the darkness bright beams of white light sliced across the snow from far behind. Not the soft yellow glow of normal headlights. These were sharper, brighter, almost surgical. They swept across the road like searchlights, moving with clear purpose. Ethan felt the older child grip his sleeve. Their hand glowed briefly, then dimmed, as if the energy inside them was fading. They looked exhausted, still recovering from the cold. Ethan realized that whatever had chased them earlier might have drained their strength. The lights behind them grew closer. The sound of engines pushed through the wind. Not one engine. Several. Deep, heavy, powerful engines built for rough terrain. The kind used by military teams or private contractors who did not want to be seen. The children pressed themselves against Ethan. The younger one whispered something soft in their own language. It sounded like a plea. A quiet cry for safety. Ethan breathed slowly, trying to keep calm for them. "I will not let anyone hurt you." Even as he said it, the doubt rose in his mind. He was one man in an old truck. Whoever was coming had numbers, power, and equipment. But the children needed him, and he could not abandon them. The lights narrowed into 4 distinct beams, 4 vehicles, 4 hunters. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. He watched as the lights stopped for a moment far behind him. One beam pointed upward, scanning the storm. Another beam moved low across the ground. They were tracking something. They were measuring something. They were not searching blindly. They knew what they were looking for. The older child stiffened. Their eyes went cold with fear. They whispered another broken English word. "Found." Ethan flinched. "Found who? Found you? Who are they?" The child forced a single whisper. "Bad." That was enough. Ethan understood everything he needed to know. Whoever those people were, they were not here to help. They were here to take these children back. Or worse. The engines roared again. The vehicles accelerated. The light beams cut directly across Ethan's truck, even through the blizzard. They must have detected something. Heat, energy, or the children's glowing bodies. The younger child suddenly raised both hands. Light flickered around their fingers. Small sparks danced in the air, but faded almost instantly. They were too weak. The storm, the cold, the fear had drained them. Ethan placed his hand over theirs. "Save your strength. I will handle this." He reached for the keys. His mind raced through possibilities. He could try to drive, but visibility was nearly zero, and the road was narrow. He could turn off the engine, but then the children might freeze. He could hide off the road, but the tracks would give them away. There was no perfect choice. Only choices. That bought time. The lights behind grew brighter, closer, stronger. The engines roared like they were tearing through the mountain itself. Ethan stared at the children. Their glowing eyes reflected the rising fear around them. The older child whispered, "Hide, please." Ethan gritted his teeth. He turned the wheel slowly and scanned the storm for any place to pull off the road. A dip, a cluster of trees. Anything that might give cover. Finally he saw it. A narrow slope leading to a snow-covered hollow just wide enough to hide the truck. It was risky, but so was staying on the open road, he whispered. "Hold on." Then he pressed the gas and guided the truck down the slope as quietly as possible. Snow rose around them like white smoke. The truck slid slightly, but Ethan controlled it with steady hands. The children braced themselves, watching the lights draw closer and closer. Once the truck was hidden behind the snowbank, Ethan killed the headlights. The engine hummed low, but he left the heater running just enough to keep the children alive. He leaned down and whispered, "Stay quiet. Do not move." The 4 beams of light swept across the road above them. Engines growled. Voices echoed faintly through the storm. Someone was here. Someone dangerous. And they were looking for the children. Snow piled high around the truck as Ethan sat in silence. He had hidden the vehicle as best as he could in the small hollow behind the snowbank. The heater ran at a low setting to keep the children warm, while the storm outside screamed louder than before. The alien children huddled together under the blankets, their silver eyes shining faintly in the dark. Their glow made the inside of the truck feel like a fragile lantern in the middle of a storm that wanted to crush it. Ethan kept his body still, even though his heart felt like it was trying to break out of his chest. He listened. The wind, the storm, the distant engine noises. Then the sound grew louder until it filled the night like a warning. The engines were close. Very close. The first SUV came into view through the swirling white. It rolled onto the road. Above Ethan's hiding place, its headlights bright enough to cut through the snow like blades. Another SUV followed, then another, then the 4th. All 4 vehicles moved with slow, heavy purpose. They did not slide on the ice. They did not hesitate. They looked like machines that had been trained for this kind of night. Ethan lowered himself in the seat, hoping the truck looked like nothing more than a lump of snow. The children knew something was wrong. The younger one clutched Ethan's arm, shaking. The older one kept staring upward as if they could see through the snow bank itself. The SUVs stopped. Engines hummed low like deep growls. The doors opened. One by one, dark figures stepped out wearing thick black winter suits with masks that covered their faces. They carried devices that glowed blue at the edges. The same glow matched the children's skin. The devices beeped softly as the men scanned the area. The older child whispered, "Hunters." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Who are they?" The child shook their head. "Not friends. Not safe." The men walked slowly through the storm, scanning every corner of the road. Their movements were controlled and sharp. They were not confused by the blizzard. They were trained. They were focused. They knew what they were looking for. One man stepped closer to the edge of the road. He pointed his device at the storm. It beeped faster. He moved it sideways. The beep slowed. He turned it downward toward the hollow where Ethan hid. The beep became almost constant. Ethan's stomach dropped. They knew the children were near. Whispered to them, "Stay low. Do not make a sound." The younger child covered their mouth with shaking hands. The older child held their shoulder, trying to keep them calm. The man on the road raised his arm, signaling the others. 3 more figures approached, gathering near him. They pointed their lights toward the slope. Snow shifted as the wind threw it around, but the beam still found the hollow. Ethan ducked lower, praying that the storm would hide them. For a few more seconds, then one beam hit the corner of the truck. Ethan's breath stopped. The man lowered. his mask and spoke into a small device. His voice came out deep and cold. Found. Trace readings. Target energy near. 30 meters below. Ethan cursed under his breath. They were coming down. The men spread out, forming a half circle. They moved slowly, but with purpose. Their boots crunched in the snow. Their lights swept across the slope. Ethan knew he had only moments before they reached the truck. He looked at the children. Their eyes glowed brighter, filled with fear. The younger one whispered, "They take us. Do not want go." Ethan reached out and held their hands. His voice shook but stayed firm. "I am not letting them take you. Not now. Not ever." The older child looked at him with something like hope mixed with panic. They whispered another word. Run. Ethan turned the key. The engine struggled, then roared to life. The men above froze and looked down. Their lights locked onto the truck. Shouting erupted. Several men rushed toward the slope, sliding down with heavy steps. One pointed a device at the truck and a loud alarm burst through the storm. Another raised a weapon shaped like a black rifle, but bulkier with a glowing blue ring at the center. Ethan slammed the truck into gear. Hold on. Snow exploded behind the tires as the truck lurched forward. The hollow shook as it climbed the slope. The men shouted again. Some chased on foot. Others ran back toward their SUVs. The children held onto Ethan tightly. Their glow intensified as if reacting to fear. The truck bounced across the rough ground, but Ethan kept control, his eyes sharp through the tiny patch of visibility ahead. The SUVs on the road above started moving toward the slope. Engines roared. Headlights blazed. Snow burst around them like smoke from a battlefield. Ethan whispered, "Stay with me. We are getting out of here." The truck shot upward, bursting from the hollow like a wild animal breaking free. The storm swallowed them again as they sped onto the road. Behind them, 4 SUVs climbed forward like metal predators in the night. The hunters had arrived, and they would not stop. Asterisk. Ethan pushed the truck onto the narrow mountain road as snow blasted across the headlights. The engine groaned like it was fighting the storm itself, but he kept his foot firm on the gas. The children stayed close beside him, wrapped in blankets with their silver eyes glowing brighter with every jolt of fear. Behind them, the 4 SUVs burst into view, their engines roaring through the storm. The older child whispered, "They will catch us." Ethan shook his head. "Not if I can help it." "Hold on." The SUVs fanned out across the road in a practiced formation. Their lights cut through the blizzard with shocking power. They were not slowed by the ice. They were not slowed by the wind. They moved like machines built for impossible weather. Ethan swerved the truck around a sharp bend. Snow sprayed to the side. The tires slipped, but he regained control at the last second. His knuckles turned white from gripping the wheel. The storm felt alive, as if it was pulling at the truck, trying to drag it down the mountain. The children breathed fast and shaky. The younger one rested their head against Ethan's arm, trying to stay calm. The older one kept looking back, their eyes flickering between fear and determination. Ethan peeked at the mirror. The first SUV grew closer, too close. Its lights filled the entire back window. The second SUV followed behind it like a shadow. The third kept wide to block any chance of turning. The fourth lagged behind, scanning the storm. Ethan muttered, "They are hurting us." The road twisted again. Ethan turned hard. The truck bounced and the children slid toward the door, but Ethan pulled them back. "Sorry, I know. Just stay with me." The younger child reached out with a small glowing hand and touched the dashboard. For a moment, the truck lights flickered, then grew brighter. The engine steadied. Ethan felt the steering become easier. It felt like the truck had been given a breath of strength. He looked at them in surprise. "Are you helping the truck?" The child nodded weakly. Ethan offered a quick, grateful smile. "Thank you. That helps." The next second, something slammed into the back of the truck. Ethan jerked forward, nearly losing control. The children gasped. He looked back. The first SUV had rammed them. Its front grille was reinforced, and its headlights glowed with cold blue light. "They are trying to stop us," Ethan growled. He pushed the truck faster. The storm tore at the road. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Ethan drove by memory and instinct. The mountain twisted in ways only someone who had lived here would understand. If he misjudged, even once they would all fall into the canyon. The older child touched his shoulder. Danger ahead. Ethan squinted through the storm. A fallen tree lay across the road, halfway buried in snow. If he hit it, they were done. He had two choices: brake and get trapped by the SUVs, or try to go around on the slippery edge. He chose the edge. "Hold tight. This will be rough." He angled the truck toward the slope. Snow slid under the tires. The truck leaned dangerously close to the canyon. "Drop!" The younger child whimpered and grabbed his sleeve. The older one closed their eyes as if bracing for impact. The truck slipped. Ethan felt his heart stop. Then the younger child placed their glowing hand on the dashboard again. A soft pulse of energy moved through the truck. The wheels gripped the snow just enough, and the truck shot forward past the fallen tree. Ethan whispered, "Good job." "Thank you." The children did not smile. They both looked behind him with growing terror. The SUVs did not slow. They drove straight over the fallen tree, shattering the branches. Ethan stared in disbelief. What kind of machines were these? They moved like beasts, not vehicles. The storm thickened. Snow whirled around them in a blinding wall. Ethan turned onto the long stretch of road that ran beside the mountain ridge. The wind pushed them sideways. The truck shook. The canyon on the right dropped hundreds of feet into pure darkness. The older child grabbed Ethan's arm. "They come fast." Ethan looked back. The four SUVs were lined up in a perfect hunting line. Their lights formed a row of white eyes cutting through the storm. They accelerated. The first SUV drew up beside the truck. A man in a black mask leaned out, holding a strange weapon. It glowed blue at the center. Ethan shouted, "Down, get down!" The children ducked. Ethan swerved the truck hard left. The weapon fired. A pulse of blue light shot past them and struck a snowdrift, exploding it into steam. Ethan felt heat on his cheek. If that blast had hit the truck, they would be done. The weapon charged again. Ethan took a deep breath. The canyon was on the right. The attacking SUV was on the left. The blizzard was a wall ahead. He made a choice. He slammed the brakes and then jerked the wheel. The truck slid sideways across the road. The SUV beside them shot forward, unable to stop. It skidded across the ice and slammed into the guardrail, which broke instantly. The SUV tumbled into the canyon, vanishing into the storm. Ethan breathed hard. One down, but the victory lasted only seconds. The other three SUVs roared louder and faster. Their lights burned through the storm like angry stars. The children looked at Ethan with fear and trust mixed together. Ethan gripped the wheel and whispered, "I am not giving up. Not while you two are with me." The chase was far from over. The storm was growing worse, and the hunters were closing in. The storm roared louder than ever as Ethan sped down the twisting mountain road. Snow shot across the windshield in wild spirals. The heater rattled. The truck engine groaned in pain. The alien children stayed close to Ethan, clutching the blankets as their silver glow flickered weakly. Their breathing was quick, filled with fear. They were almost out of strength. Behind them, the three remaining SUVs thundered through the blizzard like metal beasts that refused to stop. Their lights cut sharp lines through the snow. Their engines roared with growing power. They were gaining ground with every second. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Just hold on a little more. We are almost there," almost where he did not know. He only knew one thing. He could not let them capture these children. Not while he was still breathing. The road narrowed. Again, the cliffs rose on one side and the deep dark canyon sank on the other. The blizzard pushed them toward the edge. Ethan held the wheel steady. His hands shook from the strain. The truck shook like it was close to collapsing. The older child touched his arm and whispered, "They will stop you soon." Ethan looked at them. "Not if I stop them first." The first SUV drew close again. It rammed the back of the truck, causing the whole vehicle to bounce violently. The younger child cried out, and Ethan pulled them closer. Another SUV moved to block the left side. The third one held the right side, keeping them pinned. It was a trap. The hunters were forcing him toward a dead end. Ethan pushed the gas, but the truck could not outrun them anymore. Something was wrong. The engine sputtered. The dashboard dimmed. The heat dropped. It felt like the storm itself was draining the truck of energy. The older child closed their eyes and placed both hands against the dashboard. A faint glow spread across the truck interior like a thin mist of light. The engine steadied a little, but not enough. Ethan saw sweat on the child's forehead. "They were giving everything they had," Ethan whispered. "Stop. You need your strength." The child shook their head weakly. "Help you." The truck pushed forward again, but the SUVs matched every move. The hunters shouted commands through the blizzard. Their voices echoed cold and sharp. One of them spoke loudly enough for Ethan to hear. "Surrender now. You cannot escape." Ethan's stomach twisted. They wanted the children alive. Why, if they were rescuers, they would not chase him with weapons? If they were scientists, they would not stalk the mountains in a blizzard. This was something darker. Something official. Something dangerous. The road ahead dipped sharply before rising into a narrow ridge. The ridge ended in a cliff. Ethan knew it. If he went too far, they would all fall. If he stopped, the hunters would take the children. The older child whispered again, "Please do not let them take us." Ethan looked into their shining, fearful eyes. He had no idea who they were or where they came from, but they trusted him. They had chosen him. And in that moment, Ethan felt something powerful inside his chest. Something that said he would rather risk everything than betray that trust. He made his choice. He whispered, "I will protect you." No matter what. The SUVs moved in for the final push. One blocked the left. One edged closer on the right. The last one stayed behind, ready to ram them again. Ethan took a deep breath and did the one thing the hunters did not expect. He slammed the brakes. The truck skidded across the icy road, spinning sideways. Snow blasted everywhere in a white explosion. The SUVs reacted too slow. The first one crashed into the side of the truck. The second lost control and hit the guardrail. The third swerved to avoid them and nearly toppled over the canyon. The truck slid until it stopped only a few feet from the cliff edge. Silence fell for one breath. Then the hunters stepped out of their vehicles. Their black suits glowed faintly. Their masks reflected the storm. They surrounded the truck from all sides, weapons raised. No escape left. The commander stepped forward. His voice deep and calm. "Hand over the children." Now. The older child trembled. The younger one held Ethan's arm tightly. Ethan opened the door slowly. He stepped out into the storm, facing the commander. Snow whipped across his face. His breath fogged in the freezing air. He stood tall, even though fear crawled up his spine. He said, "They stay with me." The commander lifted his weapon. "You cannot protect them. Move aside." Ethan shook his head. No. The commander gave a signal. Before the hunters could fire the children, inside the truck began to glow. Light, bright, powerful, and rising like a heartbeat made of stars. The storm went silent for one impossible moment. Snow froze in midair. The wind stopped breathing. The children's voices echoed together. Enough. A massive pulse of light exploded outward from the truck. It swallowed the storm, the hunters, and the mountain in a blinding wave. Ethan shielded his eyes as the night turned to pure white. Then everything vanished into silence.